So I just hit Diamond 3, and let me tell you, that was not easy. But here's the thing, if I can do it, you can too. So today I'm breaking down the 5 best tips that help me personally rank up in Marvel Rivals. Alright, tip number 1, you need to find a small hero pool that you can master. And the way I recommend that is learning about 2 to 3 characters per role. So for Vanguard, the top 3 choices I would consider learning is Penny Parker, Magneto, and Doctor Strange. Alright, so to start things off, I recommend Penny Parker because she's very durable and very versatile. And what I mean by that is that she can create tons of space for her team, and she does very good burst damage. And how does she do this? Well, she does this with her mines. So she can create mines out of her suit, and she can also create webs. And the webs make her move faster and just helps with the mobility of the character itself. Now, why I recommend her is that she is very good at setting up on defensive maps and even getting space control for her team on the offensive side as well. She is definitely a solid pick and definitely an all-around character that I think everyone should get to know. She is very good on objective maps, but she's also good for payload maps as well. Now, the reason I chose Magneto is because he is very good as a tank. He is very sustainable, he has shields, and he has the abilities to get people off of him. Now, what I really like about his toolkit is that he has the ability to create shields for him and create shields for his teammates. So if you have brawlers / divers on your team and they need to get in as much as possible, he can just give them a shield while they go and do what they do. It is a very powerful ability, and if you use it right, you are 99% sure to win team fights. Another thing with Magneto is the ability to protect his team. Like I mentioned, he has shields for him and his teammates, but he also has an ability to slow enemies down with his magnetic rings. So when you charge them enough, you can blast them at an enemy and it'll knock them back and slow them. And that is very good for a flanker or someone trying to dive your team or anyone trying to brawl onto you. If you like the more defensive / keep away type Vanguard, then Magneto is perfect for you. So now moving on to Doctor Strange, I believe he is another good tank to learn is because he is very good at holding down the team. With his gigantic shield and his high damage output potential, it is so good to master Doctor Strange. So his abilities include a levitating ability, a burst damage ability, and a big shield. Yes, a big shield, which is probably one of the best abilities in the game, in my opinion. So kind of how you want to play Doctor Strange is, I would say, building up his dark magic passive. So he has a passive called Price of Magic, and what that does is it builds up dark magic every time you hit someone, but if you let it hold on for too long, then it applies an anti-heal to where he can't be healed for a certain amount of time. So to combat that, he has an ability called Maelstrom of Madness, and what that does is he does burst damage. So he basically releases all that dark magic so he doesn't get applied anti-heal, and it does really good burst damage to nearby enemies. Another great ability is his shield. Now his shield is very good. It's very humongous and it blocks a lot of damage. It has 800 health and it's up for a pretty long time, and it recharges very fast. Now what I like about this shield is that it can block lots of ults, including Iron Man's, Magneto's, and most importantly, it can block ultimates like Hela's. So if you don't know, Hela's ultimate goes high into the air and throws these kind of, like bombs at people, and it does really good burst damage. So what you can do as Doctor Strange is levitate with your ability, go up there and just hold your shield right in front of her so she has nowhere to shoot her little bombs at. And that is a really good tech when using Doctor Strange. Lastly, I want to talk about his ultimate ability. His ultimate ability is called Eye of Agamotto, and basically what it does is it kind of separates the enemy's souls from their bodies basically putting them in this trance to where they're idle and they have no ability to do anything. So that is the perfect ultimate to combo with other characters. And what I like about the ability is that it's kind of, you know, up for interpretation of what you do with it. You can do it to, you know, distract, or you can do it to pass time, or you can do it to stall, which is, I think, really good to do on certain maps and certain objectives. So it's really up to you how you use the ultimate, but just know it puts the enemies in an idle position. So as far as duelists, the top 3 I recommend is Punisher, Moon Knight, and Hela. So with Punisher, I think Punisher thrives in open maps, so you can use his machine gun and his shotgun. Man, that shotgun is really good used up close against vanguards. It does a lot of good burst damage, and it can kill really, really quickly if you hit all your shots. For the Punisher, I also want to talk about his grappling hook ability. It is really good to just go around and grapple hook to certain areas of the map and just get different and unique angles. And I think that's very underrated about the Punisher, is that, you know, he uses a grappling hook to get certain places, and I don't think too many people use that ability well enough. He also has the turret, which I think is an okay ability. You just have to be set up in a very good position to where you can't get fired at easily and that you won't get punished easily. Also, I think his other ability, you know, with the smoke bomb is really good. If you didn't know, his smoke bomb paired with his passive ability to where he can see, basically he has walls. It's a really good ability to, you know, escape and just have those walls for free. Because if the enemy team is good, they know you have those walls already. Secondly, I want to talk about Moon Knight. Now, I think Moon Knight is one of the best hybrid DPS in this game. He can play defensively or he can play aggressively. So how I personally play him is kind of more of that passive, because with the main thing you want to use with Moon Knight is his Onks, obviously. Those Onks provide the ability to bounce his normal attack onto other enemies and to other things, such as, you know, people's abilities and stuff like that. With that being said, his normal ability, normal attack, it just chains enemies just by itself. And I think that's really good if team comps require them to be very close to each other and not playing so individually within each other on the team. So if you're going against comps that play kind of together, I would really consider picking Moon Knight. And another good tech with him is pairing his Onks with his ultimate ability. If you didn't know, when you place down Onk, it kind of centers the enemy towards the center of the Onk circle. So every time you hit someone with an Onk, it kind of pulls them towards it automatically. And just pair that with his ultimate ability, I think is very S tier. If you can master that kind of combo, I think you can get very far with that. How I would play him though is I would just stay behind, you know, your vanguards, your tanks, and just playing how your team plays. That's the most important thing. If your team is more defensive, you know, kind of poke, then I would play kind of far back. But if you have, like, for example, an Hulk or, you know, something like that, then I would expect you to play a little more aggressive, because those Onks does a lot of good things for Moon Knight. Before Moon Knight, learn to adapt to the game, either play defensively or more aggressively. And another thing is also know how to use his mobility. He has a double jump and he has a grappling hook. If you aim the grappling hook towards the ground, you get way higher levitation and you can go very far with his glide ability. It's really good. So now for Hela, I put Hela in, you know, characters I would recommend playing is because she's very simple. She has an ability to center her enemies. She has kind of like a detonation ability as well. And she does very good poke damage. Hela, in my opinion, is one of the best DPS in the game, because if you have good aim, then she is a must pick in comp. She is very, very good. She does very good critical hits and just basic body shots. She does really good damage. Now, how I recommend playing her is, of course, I would recommend poke comps to be played with her, maybe comboed with a Hawkeye or maybe a Brawler to, take most of the attention. But Hela is really good when it comes to damage. She can either one-shot you or at the most 3-shot you. She is really, really good. Lastly, I want to talk about the strategist role, or aka healers. Now, for who I put on this team is Rocket Raccoon, Cloak and Dagger, as well as Jeff the Shark, unfortunately. So with Rocket Raccoon, he's very versatile. He has a self-revive, well, not self-revive, but revive for his team. And he also has just an easy healing output potential. It's very easy, just bounce the healing things off of walls and just off the floors. He is really good to master, and he has, his jetpacks to get away in case someone tries to dive him. Now, I would recommend playing Rocket with a more kind of brawly team because you are going to get flanked. As a strategist, if you're playing strategist, just know you are going to get flanked and kind of bullied the most. So with Raccoon having his kind of jetpack ability to, run away, I think it's really good. But if you really want to get the most out of him, I would kind of play with more aggressive type comps, because as well as with his ultimate ability, it gives everyone increased damage boost. So what I would do is kind of play him more into brawly comps. Moving on to Cloak and Dagger, I think they are perfect. One has the heals, one has kind of like the offensive abilities. Just using them to their fullest potential, you can't go wrong with. I think using Cloak Shadows to, kind of move your team to where they need to be, I think is very, very good. And just using Dagger for, her healing output is just really, really good. You really can't really miss with her because she kind of has like a lock on with her aim. So as long as you're making sure you know where your team is at all time, especially if you have brawlers or flyers on your team, it is very essential to know where they're at all times so you know where to use their abilities at. She has a bubble of healing and kind of like this rectangle that goes a certain amount of distance to help with healing output is really, really good. As far as Cloak, using him to escape and to inflict more damage output is really good for someone who's trying to flank you, because like I said, you are going to get flanked. There's 100% chance you're going to get flanked playing strategist. Just know that. And lastly, unfortunately, I put Jeff on this list because he is unfortunately very easy. He is very easy. He's very, very, very good at staying alive if you know how to play him. And he also has his bubbles to self-heal himself, which I think is really, really good. And just his healing output potential in general is really, really good. Now, with Jeff, I think we all have seen his ultimate ability by now. You swallow someone up or a team up and basically just take them off the map. I think that's unfortunately very good. I hope it gets fixed somehow, but for right now, I think learning Jeff the Shark, just learning how to just stay alive with him, I think is the most important thing with Jeff the Shark. Lastly, when learning your hero pool, just know their strengths and their weaknesses and where you can play to their advantage of the character itself. The more characters you know, the more strategic you can play, which means you have a better advantage in countering your team, the enemy team. Tip number 2 is I would say focus on the objectives mostly over the kills and the stats. Yeah, stats do matter in this game, but actually winning is of course more important than any other game. So I would say focus on the objective more than your kills, especially if you're Vanguard or strategist. As a duelist, I think you do, have to prioritize, killing and finishing off other enemies before prioritizing objective. So when you're in your match, I would ask yourself, what's the win condition here? Is it, getting the payload? Is it holding a control point? Is it getting the control point? Is it destroying a key target, you really got to focus on the objective at hand. And it's all different depending on which role you're playing. So take that into consideration. Tip number 3, I'm gonna kind of keep this one short, but I would just improve your communication as a teammate. If you don't have a mic, if you do have a mic, that's fine. But just knowing how to, coordinate team plays with the ping system and just calling things out where enemies are, I think is very good to do. Using the ping system is very underrated in this game. Some people use it, some people don't, but be the person that does use it. Good communication is not about just what you say, it's also about timing and how you can say it in game with the features they give us. So use the ping system to the best of ability you can. Tip number 4, optimize positioning and map awareness. I cannot stress this tip enough. You need to get a good awareness of how the map is laid out. As you rank up and as you play more, you'll get the hang of, the map rotation and how these maps are meant to be played and which characters go on which map. So with that being said, you need to optimize the position you play on these maps. I would start by, of course, sticking with your teams and doing stuff like that. Because I think, on those bigger maps, those more open maps, I think lone wolves tend to get picked off first. So don't be that guy and solo duel the enemy team. That is a no-no. You will not rank up doing that. Another small tip is, kind of predicting the enemy movements, based on the map awareness. And if you kind of know where enemy teams seem to, push from or fight from, it's important to hold down that position with the best of your abilities. And most importantly, be aware of your own positioning during fights, especially if you're duelist or vanguard. Make sure you know where you are at all times. If your team is playing more back, then push back with them. If they're starting to get more aggressive with a pick on the enemy team, push up with them. You cannot be scared to do what you have to do in this game. Tip number 5, I would say, is learn from your losses. Yes, learn from your losses. To me, progress is not winning. Progress is also winning plus losing. Because when you lose, you learn something. You don't learn something from winning. When you lose, you figure out what you did wrong and how you can improve. I think every loss is a lesson. And after each game, especially losing, I think you should take a minute to review, did I get caught out of position? Did I waste abilities? Was I over aggressive or too passive with my teammates? You need to ask yourself these questions so they can help you into the next game. One strategy I recommend is watching replays of your matches. Thank God this game has replay system that is very in-depth on how you can improve as a player. Sometimes it's as simple as just, being more patient or just sticking more with your team, which I know that can get carried away sometimes. So look for those key moments where things went wrong and think about what you could have done differently. Also, don't shy away from, the feedback your team is giving you or the teammates you play with personally. If they're giving you a different perspective than what you might have thought, then I would take that into consideration. They might notice things about you that you don't notice about yourself. So treat every game as an opportunity to grow, and I promise you, you will rank up. And there you have it, my top 5 tips on ranking up in Marvel Rivals. If you found these tips helpful, make sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button for me. And turn on notifications so you don't miss out when I post more Rivals contents. I just hit Diamond 3 on the way to higher ranks in the future. Please leave a like and subscribe. Peace.